Hi, everybody. Welcome to Raise the Vibe. This is Liz Peterson. I'm in the studio with Jamie Wolf today, and we're going to be talking about healing trauma. Enjoy the show, everybody. Hello, this is Voice of Ash on 101.9 FM KVSH, and I'm Liz Peterson. This is Raise the Vibe. Welcome to today's show. Today I have Jamie Wolf in the studio with me. Jamie is a meta coach and teacher, professional public speaker and live events facilitator, certified life mastery consultant for individuals and families, certified professional behaviors analyst, and certified professional driving forces analyst. We're going to be discussing healing trauma. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Liz. I'm so happy to be here and grateful.
So glad that you're here. This is going to be a fantastic interview, and I'm super excited to have you in the studio with me today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and all of those credentials that I, just shared with everybody?
Well, since the topic is healing trauma, it makes sense to me to just introduce kind of at the highest level of truth. So when I'm presenting to different audiences, I talk about these in different ways. Thanks. So the most important thing to know is that all the work I've done first on myself. And
Wonderful.
I'm not sure who said, woe be and at the time the man, but I'm going to inclusify that. Woe be the human that refuses to look in the mirror, but asks other people to change. And so as a change agent, it was important to me to have the tools necessary to just change myself first.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, let me modify that. I actually believe I'm perfect, created perfectly, inherently born. That truth was told to me as a little child by a person who was one of my resiliency factors, and we'll talk about that.
Oh, yeah, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, so the work that I've done all around myself. And the big part of it is understanding why people are motivated to do what they do. And that is really the key to healing trauma that I found over time.
So can you discuss a little bit more about that?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you a little bit. I'll start with myself.
Okay.
There's a tool that's commonly used. It's an evidence-based tool. And if anybody out there wants to research this, they can just go right on to kp.org, which is Kaiser Permanente's website, and type in trauma. And there are trauma studies there, or type in ACEs, ACES, which stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And there's two doctors that initially, one worked for the CDC and the other one worked for Kaiser, and they recognized that many of their patients were suffering with immense physical issues. And as they listened to those people who were suffering, they recognized that they were talking underneath their discussion of their illness about traumatic experiences and things that had happened to them. So they got curious. And Dr. Fleety developed a survey that asked 10 questions. And so anyone listening can go on and just Google that. It's everywhere, ACES.
Okay.
And I invite the listeners to take that, and then to also take the resiliency part of that as well. It's a two-part study. And what they discovered was that the sicker people were, there's a direct correlation to their ACEs score. And so the ACEs asked 10 questions, and I'll tell you some of them.
Sure.
Are you familiar with the ACEs?
Not at all. So this is new information for me. I'm really excited to learn about it.
It's really powerful. So one of the questions, and all of them are before the age of 18. So it's not even talking about adulthood trauma. It's talking about the stuff that happened to you before you're 18 years old.
Yeah,
so
it really impacts our life.
Yes. And when we're forming our belief systems, what I call our paradigms, or those laws that we decide to live our life by, that are really downloaded into us as children, and then I'm just going to flip it to the metaphysical, spiritual side of this, are in direct opposition a lot of times to who our true, capital T, true self, capital S, really is.
Yes.
So a lot of people just live their lives with these paradigms and these stories, and they don't recognize that they have the power to completely transform those and change those. And so my ultimate goal, Liz, is to, she's telling me come closer. My ultimate goal is to end suffering for humans, because I know it's possible, and so that they can live lives of joy and peace. And the truth is, I've done that work with myself. So the higher score you get on the ACEs, and let me tell you some of the questions. So one of the questions is, did you ever have a parent who went to prison? Did you have a parent who was addicted to a substance? Did you have a parent who suffered mental illness, depression, or attempted suicide?
Wow.
Did you have, did someone in your household who was older than you regularly humiliate you, or hit you, or those kind of things? I can't remember the exact wording. People can look that up. Did someone in your household, did you ever see your mother, and so, or could be your stepmother? People if you go take the ACEs, folks, don't be too literal. If you live with your stepmother and you saw this, it's the same thing. Did you regularly see, or, and conversely, to be inclusive, women are also DV perpetrators. So did you ever see so you can add that in. They didn't make the question that way, so make it relevant to yourself. See your mother regularly hit by your father. And those are the kinds of questions that it also asks. Did you have clean clothes to wear? Did you have food? So talking about actually the basics of human life.
Yeah.
And then did you, before the age of 18, were you touched, fondled, basically, were you sexually assaulted before the age of 18? So I probably didn't say all of them there, but you get the gist of it. So it addresses neglect, sexual assault, mental illness. I think that's about it. So the higher your score, the beauty about the study, and the beauty about the study that I love so much is that, again, direct correlation to health outcomes. So we can, I work with my individual clients in my private practice and in my classrooms when I'm teaching trauma and at seminars. Everyone takes this assessment. And I can know with certainty that, Liz, if you have a score of 4 or above, I don't even need to know what happened to you, but I know that there are certain outcomes that I can count on. I can know, for instance, if you have a score of 4, that you have this percentage likelihood of having COPD because you're likely going to smoke. I can know that you're going to have this likelihood that you're going to be an alcoholic or be addicted to some substance. And in there, I include food. Yeah. I can know with clarity that this list of things are going to happen to you. And so it's kind of a benchmark of 4 or above. Most of the population has 1. Lots of people have 0. And the reason I got curious about this ACEs piece initially was that I come from a long background of recovery of my own trauma. And I don't even like to call it recovery anymore. Or even a survivor. I really am thriving at this point.
I love that word.
Yeah.
Thriving.
It's a great word. So in my 30s and early 40s, I worked in law enforcement, and I saw so many people around me suffering, especially the kids and the adults that I worked with. And our commandment really in law enforcement is that we act in parentis loco, which means we're the parent in place of. And I took this very seriously because I came from a household where I have an ACEs score of 8. And Liz, what that means is I should be slamming dope in my arm. I should be dead in the street. I should be morbidly obese, and I have been 3 times. I should be a smoker, and I was. I should have a stroke, and I did.
Wow.
I should have PTSD, and yes, I've had that diagnosis, and now I'm in what they call, and thank you Goddess, post-trauma growth, which is I'm healthy, and that's there, and I need to be mindful. Thank you. A lot of work. So
a lot of work.
I got curious though when I retired that I thought I can't be the only one. There must be other people out here, but my workmates never talked about their stuff. So after I retired and I went back in and started teaching law enforcement, I started doing this survey, and I sent off all my stuff to a statistician, and then I did the survey in juvenile halls, and I sent it off to the statistician, and I had her compare the findings between the staff working, which were teachers, social workers, probation officers, police officers, all those people, compared to kids in juvenile hall. Guess what I found out?
They're similar.
Pretty similar. In fact, in 4 areas we rated higher.
Wow.
Than the kids did. And it's a self-reporting. So in the areas of, and I was.
What a great study.
Yeah. So I can walk in a classroom now and know that 25% of my students in a law enforcement environment experience DV. 18% of them grew up with a parent who was mentally ill. I can just make that general assumption. Right. And so the reason I love ACEs is that if I have a person that I'm working with and they have a score of 6, I can just make some assumptions, and we can use that as power rather than fearing it.
Mhm.
Go to look at kp.org and say, here's the stuff that can happen with you if you choose that route, or let's get proactive and make plans so that these things don't come to fruition.
Gosh, that's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you take that and do what you do now?
Well, so in 2 weeks, it's very exciting. I'm going to be leading a seminar for 300 folks down in Camarillo, California, which is my hometown. So I'm going home. It's the first time I've been home. It's also going to be my largest event I've done. And it's social workers, teachers, community organizations, probation officers. And these people are so amazing. They work with, in large part, homeless kids, kids that are in horrible families. A lot of them are the people who, when children are taken away from their parents at the border, they are the social workers. So think about the level of trauma, vicarious trauma that they're experiencing with that. And so I have been given the opportunity to go in, and I'll be the keynote. So I'll talk about my study, and then I'm going to do 2 breakouts. The first breakout will talk about health and all the things that in my recovery I learned about, that I had to do and I continue to do to take care of my body, to keep my central nervous system really calm. And so I'll give them those tools. And then in the second piece, they'll actually make a 5-point plan for themselves around what they can walk out the door and implement immediately. And I brought one of the tools here that we could talk about if you want, that they'll actually get to talk about. So, yeah, that sounds fun. So what is your mission? Oh my goodness. So my mission is to end suffering, my big mission, because I know it's unnecessary. Yeah. We have all the resources worldwide to help people and live full and beautiful lives. And so my mission is to provide the tools for people so that they can end their own suffering and take charge of their lives and live a life of joy and peace and happiness. And that's the purpose of life, for goodness sake. It's not come onto the earth and suffer and die. Yeah. So, which is a paradigm. A lot of people believe that. Thank you, Liz, and thanks for the work you do in the world. So fantastic. Yeah.
And then you have a fundamental belief. Can you share that with us?
My fundamental belief is that as I sit here and look at you, and I believe this about every single person that I encounter, that we are inherently perfectly created. And there is nothing that you can do, absolutely nothing, that can make that not true. Now, this is separate from our behavior. So I believe that there is no behavior, there is no circumstance, there is nothing that separates us from our infinite self, which is kind of the Joe Campbell idea of, being myself in the hero's journey is the discovery of who am I, who is that human being. Not on the plane of common hour thinking, not I go to work and I do this and I do this and then my checkbox list. I mean, those are real things we have to do. But this, which is this piece up here, I've been in the study of this for about a year now. A teacher named Kirsten Wells, who I really admire. She actually made this poster, and I went up and took it down and took it home, and it hangs at the foot of my bed. And I study it constantly, which is how do we work with people so that they can be in alignment with their infinite nature. So whatever your belief system is, God, Goddess, Buddha, Muhammad, it doesn't matter. All of the belief structures say the same thing, that we are created to be our best selves in one way or another. And so how do we shed the behaviors that aren't working for us? And what I know is true is people want to blame people for their behaviors. When I look at someone and what they're doing, I think, why would they do that? That is some kind of a survival tool that they learned and it worked for them. And that's some hero stuff. If they could figure that out, we're so resilient. We can figure out what we need to do to survive. It's beautiful. And the people I work with, they have some really strong things that they do that aren't working for them anymore. So it got them through childhood, and now they're suffering because they need to change those, what we call paradigms.
Yes. This is incredible work. I'm super excited that you're discussing this with us today. So tell us about, so there's a poster here. The people on YouTube can see it. So there's a poster behind us. It is a vertical line, a horizontal line, and then a circle in the center. Could you talk about that and her work?
I would love to. So Kirsten Wells is a master coach and teacher that I did really the next up level of myself with and worked with her. specifically. She's just a beautiful human being. When she talks, don't even try to talk to me because I am 100% there. Every word she says is magical to me. So Kirsten Wells presented this particular poster in at an event I was in. I invest a tremendous amount of money in my own education, and I'm saddened that people don't understand that they cannot have the life that they would love living if they're not in a structure of support and learning from people who are the masters who have the stuff figured out. So first 10 years of my healing journey and my recovery, I tried to do it alone. And when I got a coach, and she said this really powerful thing to me that goes back to my childhood, which was, you're now choosing to go back in the trailer. You actually don't have to. No one's making you anymore. You're making that choice to suffer.
Wow.
And that was a transformational moment for me.
That's
this
huge.
Wow moment of, personal responsibility and integrity, and all of these things came flooding down. And so I started working with different coaches for different things where they were experts. And then I discovered seminars, and if you're interested later, you can contact me, and I can people out there, and I can tell you what I did. But what I ultimately did was I took all my teachings and I figured out what worked and what didn't work, what books worked, what that worked in terms of trauma. And then I combined it with science. And what I found was that all the teachers are really saying the same darn thing, Liz. I know you already know this truth.
And I've been to so many workshops and seminars, and it's really, a different perspective on the same process.
Exactly.
It's awesome.
And there is a truth with a capital T. And once we know that truth, then we can transform our lives with that. So I've codified it and taken it into a 5-step process. And now when I work with people, I teach them how to let's take a look at the trauma. And then let's really look at what you learned from that and start to undo those paradigms. So before I get to Kirsten's work here, I'll tell you that what I learned at 4 years old was that I have to let people who, quote unquote, love me, hurt me to be safe. And I also learned that I don't matter. And I also learned that I am here to serve people at the table, but there's no place for me there. Wow. And that I also learned that I have to give away whatever they ask for in order for me to get, quote unquote, love. And those are what we call paradigms. And in most families, we have wallpaper paradigms. I love this term. It's such a juicy term.
That's a new one for me. I like this.
Okay, so check it. Have you ever gone into a house that's an old house that somebody's restoring, or did you ever restore an old house?
A friend of mine is restoring a house, so I'm familiar with what you're talking about.
Yeah, so when we go in, there's this wallpaper. And invariably, if it's an old house, when we pull the first layer off, what's underneath it?
More wallpaper.
Right? And that continues to go on. So we start out in 1980 something when we bought our first house here on Vashon. My ex-partner and I, there was lots of wallpaper, and so peeling off the wallpaper was a process. And as we peel our wallpaper off, we're looking at, now we're back to 1950. Now we're back to 1930, right? So this progression, I love this idea of wallpaper paradigms, which are we're all big one big onion. And one of my teachers says, yes, we're all one big effed up onion. I can't say that word.
Peeling the layers.
And it's just a matter of meticulously peeling the layers off. So the lessons that I learned as a 4-year-old, I carried with me into my adult life. And no one said to me, there's another way to think, or there's another way to be. And no one came in and took me out of that environment. And so I also learned there's no help, and I'm on my own. And one of the bigger lessons I learned was that can never happen to my baby brother. And I became the protector of him and of everyone in my family. So interesting. What did I go into later? Law enforcement, right? To be the protector.
Yeah, the protector.
So what Kirsten Wells talks about here in this just beautiful, and I love simplicity, for me it really works, is that this line here is really our common hour thinking. It's how we live as humans. It's our intellect. It's our to-do list. It's the things we need to do in order to survive and make money. And we have a birth point and a death point. So this is our human experience. It's what we see in the grocery store. People, I shouldn't say we, you don't see that. You see their whole spirit, the whole person, I'm imagining. Yes. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. So you're seeing all of this. And then this line The vertical line represents our infinite self and our connection to the infinite. And for folks out there, like, infinite, what does that mean? God, Goddess, Muhammad, Jesus, whatever that source is for you, your higher power, if you're a 12-step person, whatever the source is for you that really, really speaks to you in terms of who you are at your depth, and peeling away the paradigms about that. So who am I authentically, and what do I bring to this moment? So when we use terms like still small voice, that comes from our infinite self. Our still small voice knows our truth. It knows what the truth is. And still small voice is always quiet. It never yells. You know what yells at us? Paradigms. They yell at us. They're louder. They always speak loudest, and they speak first. And so learning to listen to this. And then the red dot in Kirsten's example here is around being present in the present time. So what most people are doing, and what I found in my work with trauma victims and trauma survivors, is that, and I won't say survivors, people who are still stuck in that, this is how my life is. One of my clients said to me just this week, and she's brand new, and I'm excited to work with her because we're going to switch this stuff up. But she said to me, I just wake up every morning and it's one more effed up day and I just want to get through it. That's a paradigm, and it doesn't have to be that way. When I'm in connection with my infinite self and all that is, then we can change that up. And so we'll pull those little pieces apart. So the red dot is really being present in the now. So most people who suffer are not actually living in the now. I know you know this is the work of Eckhart Tolle and many others, to being present in the now, what is true now. Most people are living, they're futurizing and they're catastrophizing, or they're living in the past and they're, what another teacher, Mary Morrissey, taught me, nursing and rehearsing their wounds and living in that wound. And both of these things rob us of the present time. Like sitting here right here with you now, getting to talk about these things is so rich. And so I've trained my mind to be present here with us. And so I'm grateful for that realization. So when we combine those two things, yes, I chose to do, I didn't have to do anything. I chose to get up this morning and do some work for a big seminar that's coming up. And at the same time, I stayed in line with what is true with myself and was in the present moment. And only in that moment can I really be grateful for what's true.
Yeah. That's
So,
wonderful. So what tools do you give people who are functioning from their wounds?
So the first thing, so I actually brought a couple of my tools with me. So one of the first.
Yes, we have tools.
I love tools. I love
awesome.
I love
tell us about these.
So this is my favorite book right here, As a Man Thinketh. It's an old school book, and it does say he, him, his is the language in it. So one who chooses to read it hopefully can inclusify on their own. I have one person I work with, am working with, and they've gone through and crossed all that out. However you need to do that. It's an old school book. But I just open it up, and this is just typical James Allen. So this goes everywhere with me, whether I'm flying, I'm in a classroom, I just open it up and read something every day. It says here, and I'm going to inclusify it, so I'm going to change the man to everyone. Let a human radically alter their thoughts, and they will be astonished at the rapid transformation that it will affect in the material conditions of their life. And this is just a truth with a capital T that all the teachers teach. When I change my thoughts, I change my mind. And if there's anybody out there right now thinking, that's la-la stuff, that's a spiritual yoga mumbo jumbo. Actually, it's science. And we know now, Dr. Joe Dispenza, if you want to see the science of it, he's so juicy.
So great. I saw him last year.
You did?
It was fantastic. So energizing. Yes. So powerful. Yeah.
He's amazing. And he shows in his video TED Talks. You can just do TED Talk, Dr. Joe Dispenza. There's actually a video that he's taking of neuroconnectors reconnecting to the new thought. It's so have you seen that one?
It's so amazing. Yeah, you played it like what?
Yes, it's amazing.
Yes, we can recreate and restructure our minds. It doesn't have to stay old. We can create the new all the time. The more you do the new, the more the old just fades away.
Exactly.
You create those new neural pathways.
That's what I'm talking about.
Awesome.
So that's what I teach people. That was your question, is how do we switch up the neural pathways? And first we have to get a clear vision of what we would love. So most people are not even conscious of what they would love in their life. And I break it down into 4 areas.
Okay.
And so we look at those 4 particular areas going forward and then study them and create a vision for people, because absent a vision, we're really sitting ducks.
Yeah, tell us more about that.
Well, so this is not vision-based living. This line here, this is condition-based living. So what's condition-based living? I have to get up. I have to go to work. None of that's true. You're actually choosing to, but I have to brush my teeth. You really don't.
Choosing.
I have to feed my dog. I have to, and we know these have to people, and they carry around an energetic footprint or thumbprint or effect that is so yucky, because they feel so stuck in their beingness and who they are, and it becomes toxic for folks. So they're feeling powerless, and that's victim mindset. It's also called common hour thinking, that I'm at the effect of what's true in my life. And what I know is true is, and I'm pretty sure you know this is true, is that's nonsense.
Yeah.
So I can upgrade or up level anything.
Yeah, explain a little bit more about common hour thinking.
Okay, so common hour thinking. So I'm going to tell a little bit of my story, just a tiny bit. So before the age of 18, I already had an ACEs score of 8. So anything after that is just an added on number. And I had gotten a scholarship to college. My parents had not saved any money or weren't sending us, and that's fine. But I was a great athlete, and so I decided I'd go to college, and I got this scholarship. So I went off to school, and I didn't even know, Liz, yet what was wrong with me. I just knew there was something wrong with me, that I wasn't normal. We lived in a very structured culture, what was then called Christian. I know now, not Christian. Christ did not advocate anything that happened in that family. So I have real Christian friends now that really live that and walk that talk. So I'm awesome. Be mindful that Christians out there get that I get it. And anyway, I went off to the school. It was a pre-seminary school, and I was standing in line, very first day, and there's this woman standing in front of me, and my heart started fluttering, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is what's wrong with me. I like girls. And I didn't even have a word for it. Like, no one had ever told me what that meant. So this woman, her name was Renee, ended up being my first girlfriend, and it was really sweet. And I told my mom, and I knew that my parents were not going to be accepting of it. But what was happening at the time, when we look back on it and deconstruct it, or what you hear today commonly unpack it, was that I was really sick of living this life and being told how I had to be heterosexual, look like a girl, dress like a girl, wear hair like a girl. It was not in alignment with my infinite self, who I was authentically. Yeah. And this was one of my first efforts at saying, no, I want to have a happy life, and I like Renee. So brought her home for Christmas, did not go well. And my mom subsequently turned me into the school, and they kicked me out, and I lost my scholarships. Wow. So this is another, was a huge trauma. Yes. Yeah. So ultimately, long story short, through a pattern of events, I ended up homeless and living in the back of my little Toyota Tacoma. I still drive a Toyota. It's out there. I love it's a big sense of safety for me. And one day I woke up in the parking lot in downtown Ventura at the Holiday Inn, and I was smoking a cigarette, and was pretty chubby already. 2 signs, 2 of the ACEs indicators, and homeless. 3 signs, and with my then girlfriend, and I looked over at her and said, do you think it's possible that there could be more to life? And this is what we call in public speaking the pit moment, but also the pivot. And definitely. So I have chills. Yeah. So that's also me becoming in touch with, and I believe actually having a divine download. Yes, that spirit, so goddess, whoever, saying, what about this thought? That still small voice. Yeah. So she and I got all our money out. We were both working 2 and 3 jobs at the time, and poured our money out on the bottom of the truck. And we had about $15 between us. And that was enough to buy one night in a hotel room. And I'll just tell you, Liz, it was a hotel room you can rent for an hour at a time. If it tells that, tells you like what kind of hotel it was. Terrible. But we didn't think terrible. We were thrilled and elated. And this is one of the messages that I really talk a lot to, especially law enforcement and folks who work with people. When folks are recovering and they're pulling themselves up by their bootstraps, sometimes the bootstrap doesn't look like what you want it to look like. And to me, it was huge. And when we got in that room and locked the door, I'll never forget, she jumped onto the bed. It was like a twin bed, not the back of the truck. Yeah. We took like 14 showers, and I remember it had a coffee maker, and that was huge. For us, it was the lack of luxury. We eventually were able to save up enough to rent that room for a month at a time. And once we were able to do that, we got the concept of saving.
Awesome.
And so then we got a little tiny apartment that we shared with another couple, and we shared a one-room apartment with another couple. Pretty intolerable by today's standards. There's no way. But again, we thought
difficult.
we thought we had arrived. And another long story short, eventually I got this mobile home in a place called El Rio, California, and I had to borrow $5,000 from my dad for the down payment. And this was home. And if you know anything about El Rio, California, I'm guessing you don't. It's the most violent gang is in that area, and so gunshots, all kinds of stuff. But again, and I live next to the freeway. Again, I thought I was in heaven and I had arrived. And the story really is about how we incrementally up-level ourselves. Literally, I was doing that in real time.
Yeah, following the breadcrumbs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. What that's about.
Yeah, it's baby steps.
It's baby steps, and recognizing them when people are making baby steps in front of us, to be so thrilled for them at their level of whatever it is, they're thrilled. That may be the very best they can do. So eventually, I hurt my back, and this was another pit moment. I worked for a physical therapist, and my house payment was $300, which imagine I couldn't make. And my parents said no. They wanted to teach me a lesson about responsibility.
Oh gosh.
So I had to sell my mobile home. And then in the paperwork, my father had, the way that we did the paperwork made it so that he got all of whatever the profit was from the sale of the mobile home. So here I was again. It's so interesting now, and I want to bring us back to the place of resiliency. What I learned in my study, Liz, was that the difference between people who work with kids in juvenile facilities and adults who are incarcerated and on probation, parole, whatever, and all of those communities interlace, foster kids, all of that. What I found in my study was another thing. One of my paradigms: give credit away. Right? It was me. I did
it's
it.
you.
And what I found was that we, law enforcement, social workers, all that. Yes, we even had higher trauma than they did, but what we also had higher were resiliency factors. And so it's really important to talk about that for a minute, if that's okay.
Yes, please do, because I think that's really important too.
Yeah, so the higher one's resiliency factor, the more chance that we know that people do better and survive more. So it's the reason I'm not dead, I'm not slamming dope, that I could make these big decisions. And so I had several resiliency factors, and one was a woman. So I'm from the Deep South. My family's 8 generations from Mobile, Alabama. So that's its whole own saga. But there was a woman who worked for us, and her name was Dot. She was African American, and she was just this beautiful human being. And when things would go really bad in my family, which they often did, we would go to my grandmother's house, and Dot would be there. And Dot would do some things with my brother and I. Now, she was an African American woman who was a house worker. She had no training. And this is why I know, Liz, that the truth with a capital T is the truth with a capital T, and Dot knew it at the time. Oh. So we would get there, and she would tell my brother and I, take those clothes off. They're full of hate. And let's put clean, she'd put us in a bath, and she'd scrub the hate off of us, literally. Right. And so she's actually doing the physical manifestation of demonstrating for us how to separate from what happened in the past and get us present.
Wow.
And clean. And she'd put us in a big bed, and she'd make us cheese grits. And if you've never had cheese grits, they fix everything. They're so amazing.
Comfort food.
And yes, huge morbidly obese woman. And everything that when I look back on Dot today and I think about her real name Dorothy, I think, I wish I could go back and thank her. So message to the listeners: if you know who your resiliency factors are, thank them now. And this beautiful human being, what happened to her? Because no one weighs 300 or 400 pounds that hasn't. And who was there for her? And who taught her? Anyway, she
was an angel in your light at the time.
For sure. Yeah. So she'd put us in a bed, and she would say, now you listen to me, look at me in my eyes. And she would say, and I'm in the process of changing my name legally forever for most of my life was Donna Ruth. And so part of my separating from my family of origin and really healing this is I'm changing my name, and that'll happen legally in June. So I'm very excited. Thank you. she would say, Donna Ruth, look at me in your eyes. Like, look right here. And she'd say, I want to tell you something, baby. What your father says is not true. Now think about this. An African-American woman in the deep South, what is she risking?
Yeah.
Her life. I want to tell you the truth, and I want you to listen to me. You are a child of God, and you are created perfectly, and you are beautifully made. She's quoting scripture, of course.
Aww.
Nothing can change that. You can be and do anything you want to be and do, and I see your beautiful light. I see how smart you are. I see how bright you are. She would go on and on and on. And my brother and I, after time, we would know what she was going to say,
So
but we'd crawl into bed and be like, yes. And what was she doing? She was creating neural connectors for us.
Mm-hmm.
That's what she was doing.
Yeah.
She knew the science.
Giving you tools to rise above what you were experiencing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, fast forward. Wow. I mean, the good news is all that hard story. I'm living on Vashon Island. I have a beautiful life. I live on a 5-acre farm in a tiny house that's totally tricked out inside with all kinds of sustainable wood made by local craftsmen.
That's awesome. I feel like dots in the room right now going, yay, you go, girl. Yay, clapping.
Right. And my avocation and vocation is I get to share the good news with people that you can change your circumstances. You don't have to live a circumstance-based life anymore. It's a choice. So, yeah.
Gosh, that is wonderful. So, where should we go from here? So tell us about, you have another poster here up on the wall. Tribe525.com is what it says on there. Can you describe that to our listeners?
Well, so I started a second business. I started having a lot of people were coming to me saying, we want to work with you, Jamie, and we're not law enforcement, or we are law enforcement, but we don't want to work with you in the law enforcement world because there's so many paradigms about being vulnerability showing that. So last year I went back to school, and I actually bought a program with a teacher. So I think she likes to call herself a mentor, Mary Morrissey. And it was, I became a certified life mastery coach. And part of that, her son, John Boggs is his name, created this crazy rad, it's basically business in a box. So when I went online, I was looking for, how can I get certified as a life coach? What can I do? Certification is important to me. People who just put titles, it bothers me because I really value education and a learner's mindset, and the willingness to learn from others is important. So it's a little bit of a funny story. When I was looking for what's my next thing and who can I study from, I offered it up, and I am a student. I worship the goddess as my god. But when I say that, but I said, goddess, where do I go next? This is my next step. Lead me. So I went to bed that night. I woke up the next morning and I turned on my TV, and sorry, Mary, if you're listening to this, but it's this white woman in a really tight, custom, but she's rad. She's like 75, little kind of haughty woman on fire, and she's talking. And I thought, surely you're joking, because I was picturing more like someone black or brown, and India was going to be my next step, and that's where I would be, some kind of yoga thing, that kind of deal. And I said, you're kidding, right? And I heard very clearly, no. You asked, I told you. And then I heard very clearly, obey.
Awesome. Yeah, ask the question, put it out to the universe, and then wait for the answer. And there you go. That was pretty quick. That's awesome.
Right, that was rad. So I went and did Mary's program, and John put together this most amazing thing. So I created a new business, and I knew that I could do that. And in 2 months, I had up and running tribe525.com. Awesome. So my new business is Tribe525. And what does that mean? So tribe's important to us. We're communal beings, and it's critical. And, loneliness is, my girlfriend told me this last night, like loneliness is the equivalent of smoking 17 cigarettes a day or something. It's more toxic than that.
Wow. So
creating tribe around us, and then we have 525,000 minutes in a year. And so one of my big questions and one of my props that, if for those of you who can see here, is I have a big hourglass. It's actually a gift from Mary Morrissey. Thank you, Mary. And it's an hour, literally an hourglass. And the question that I ask people when I work with them is, how are you spending your time? So in trauma recovery, I have people sit down with $525,000, and I do this with couples that I work with. And it's literally funny money, and they're playing with it. And I say, so your first meeting, let's see how you spend your time. And they, let's take out sleep first. And then now let's take out the time you spend with your girlfriends doing this. And how about when you went fishing with the guys? And at the end of it, one couple that I worked with, they had $1 and they couldn't figure out why their relationship wasn't working. Right? So then I put it back together and say, now what would you love? Let's design a life. The difference between life by default and life by design.
Ooh,
and this is what people really miss out on, is that I can live a life by default. Most people do. In fact, the work of Carol Dweck, she calls it fixed mindset. It's a beautiful thing. She has fixed mindset or growth mindset people. And fixed mindset people, I think they're somewhere around 60%. Is what I found on Vashon. I'm biased. I think we're a little more enlightened.
I think so too.
So I got the idea, try 525, and the question on and it says try525.com. So if you want to go check that out, you can. The question is, how are you spending the currency of your life? And so I am always aware. And this stuff, these little tools sit on my desk, and I'm aware of. I flip that over constantly. I've just spent an hour. What did I do? Did I do it something that was generative? Did I do something that was creative, or did I twiddle my time away on social media? Or how did I use that time? And I am constantly asking myself that. So this tool anyway, and then it has my, if you want to contact me, Jamie Wolf at try525.com. So I created that because people wanted to work with me in an environment that was more confidential, and then also kind of more la friendly, not the law enforcement environment. They wanted to come and bring their authentic, beautiful selves to the table. So I kind of say I have two jobs. I work in the law enforcement world, and I bring all this stuff. They just don't know it because I code it in law enforcement language. And
nice.
And then I have this other business, which is working with kind of folks who I say still believe in fairies and butterflies into the sky is blue when they look out.
Nice. Can you describe the poster for our listeners?
You bet. So it's an airplane. This lecture I initially heard from Rich Boggs, a friend of mine, and Rich Boggs is a brilliant guy. And what Rich is a pilot, and so one of the truths with the capital T that all teachers know, and you'll recognize this, is that people who are successful and lead really happy lives regularly and fiercely edit their lives. And so I have this little pair of scissors that sits on my desk, also a gift from Mary, my teacher.
Awesome.
People who work with me get all this stuff to have around them to remind them. So it's about really courageously and getting rid of what is not working for me anymore. So each time I moved, and my then girlfriend and I up-leveled our life, we didn't go back and hang out with those people because they were in a consciousness of poverty and stuckness and common hour thinking, and that they couldn't change it up. And so
interesting.
People who grow have to leave some folks behind. And more than that, we have to leave some thoughts behind. Yeah. We have to leave some things behind that just aren't working for us anymore.
Thoughts, patterns, and beliefs.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I love this, and thank you, Rich. What you're not seeing here, if you're on radio, is that it has four basic things that it does. It has lift, drag, weight, and thrust. And so on the drawing, the thrust part is kind of at the nose of the plane, and the lift is pointing up, obviously, at the top of the plane. Drag is behind the plane, and weight is pointed down. And so one of the ways that I ask people in my seminars and in my private work is to evaluate their 5 closest people, the people that they spend the most time with. So Elizabeth, and I'm not going to ask you any question about these people, but if you think about them and who they are in your mind, you got your 5 people?
Yes.
So it's who you spend your most time with. And I want to say, if one of the people that you consider a person that you spend the most time with is like God, Jesus, Mary, whatever, that, I'd ask you not to include that. Real life human, like on the earth in human form people.
Got it.
So you got it?
Yeah.
And I want you to think about, of those people, and you don't have to say their name, or you could say their name, of those people, who is the person, or who are the people who provide lift? And let me tell you what that is. So lift are people who, when you walk away from them, you feel expansive and I could do anything. This is amazing. You're happy and you feel joyful inside. There's a little jump in your step. You got any of those in that pack?
I have so many in this pack now. My life has been just 2 years of transformation, and I have left so many that were in the weight and the drag category behind, and have brought into my life the most beautiful, powerful women and men who lift me up, and hopefully I lift them up. I am truly blessed right now in my life to be surrounded by such a beautiful group of people.
It's
and
so
beautiful
lovely.
women in my life. I have a gorgeous tribe right now. Yeah.
It's juicy, and so I would just ask you, did that take some work?
It did. And I do have to say that the universe really, when I flipped the switch, the universe brought me these beautiful people.
So the Henry David Thoreau, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, they were called transcendentalists at the time, and what we know now is they knew the truth, which Henry David Thoreau wrote about. When we finally decide, the universe will bring all unexpected things in common hours, right, to help us and assist us.
True.
Because we've changed our mind, and so do you know the science behind that? How it works?
No, please describe.
So we have this little thing in the back of our head called the amygdala. It's in our old parts. We have two parts of our brain really that are important to me. If you're a neuroscientist out there, I apologize in advance. This is way oversimplified for the masses, but so we have a prefrontal cortex, which is our rational mind, and it's really, our best self, and tells us, slow down, don't say that, censor that, whatever. We have this other part that resides kind of in the back of our head that's called, and Joe Dispenza talks about this, it's all science, the amygdala. And the amygdala houses all of our paradigms. And this is when people understand this. I used to be afraid of my amygdala. I now love it because it kept me alive, is the truth.
Yeah.
It teaches me those things. But so the amygdala is constantly looking for what we tell it to look for. Its job is to keep us safe and to keep us alive. And so it loves to use fear as a motivator. What if that happens? What if this? And so that kind of thing.
Cool. I call this the lizard brain.
It is. It is.
That thing that wants to keep us safe.
Exactly. It's called caveman brain, lizard brain, the old brain. This is the new brain. Lots of names for it. So yes.
Cool.
Once we start telling that what to look for, right? The mind is a cruel master and an amazing servant. And when people learn that I don't have to believe my thoughts, it's just information. I think of it like the ticker tape on Wall Street, right? It's like, blah, 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 blah. And I look at it and say, what's really useful for me right now? Is any of that nonsense useful? And then in yoga practices and stuff, they call it monkey mind.
Yep.
So I don't have to believe that. This is one of the biggest tools we can give people when we're working with them, that is a bunch of info and you get to decide what you believe. Now, the next step is once I consciously decide I want to create a new tribe. So did you create a vision for what you wanted?
I did.
You want to share? Are you willing?
No, we're actually running out of time. So I would just love to just continue and hear, and for the guests to continue hearing what you have to say.
Great. So, well, the truth is that once we create a vision of what we would love, not what we'd sort of like, but what we would love, then our brain will start looking for that. That's really the short answer. And again, my seminars are long and I have these 4-week things that people can really do a deep dive. So I have the airplane model, which is that I want to fiercely look at constantly who's in my life. And I think about it two ways. When I'm with this person, do they provide, when I walk away from them, do I feel expansive? I like things really simple. Or do I feel constricted? And it's really just two things. And when I'm around someone, and people go through bad stuff, and we're going to have those kind of conversations that are constricted. I get it. But when it is a constant, every time I see you, I walk away feeling drained and lower leveled, then I choose to look at that and say, is this a person that's really serving my highest good anymore? And at some point, if they're not coming along, let them go, bless them.
Yeah.
And or move them in the back of the amphitheater and not right up in a front row seat for me anymore.
Nice.
So so that's the airplane. I love it. And again, the happiest people regularly and fiercely edit their lives. I don't know who to credit that to, but someone brilliant. Oh, I know who it is. The great Jim Rohn, motivational speaker.
Wonderful.
And so we can say also the most joy-filled people, the richest people, the most successful people. Like, did you know that your income will be the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with?
Wow.
Think about that. Gosh, I have up-leveled my people, and I plugged in a person named Anita Green for many reasons. Number one, she's had a happy, rich marriage for many years, and I want that around me.
Wonderful.
And Jim Rohn talked about, we don't catch these things, but our brains are picking up on the subtle things that people are talking about all the time. And if they're talking about common hour thinking, then that's what we'll get. And so this is a truth that all great people knew. Rosa Parks knew it. Martin Luther King knew it. Mother Teresa knew it. Gandhi knew it. All these people, Thomas Edison knew it. Thomas Edison and Henry Ford would not hang out with common hour thinkers. They refused to, and people criticized them for it. But they knew what it did to their creative energy. And that they were at no.
Yeah, instead of being in abundance, you're in lack.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I have brought that into my life, the last 2 years is who am I surrounding myself with? What are they talking about? Are they successful? What are they doing with their lives? It is really important. Yeah. So we have about 10 minutes left on our show. Is there anything else you want to share with us about vision, defining areas? What's popping into your head that you think would be most beneficial for our listeners today?
Well, I brought you a present, so I want to make sure we have time for that.
Thank you
so this
much.
is
The greatest journal ever.
That's it. It is the greatest journal ever. So
I'm excited. I love journals.
It's a dorky little red wristband that says Tribe 525 is my tribe. And so what this means is I hang out with people that are doing what you just said. They're talking about things that matter. They're not talking about people, they're talking about ideas.
That is fantastic.
And then 2 little cards that are really keys for my work. And I'm constantly asking, what would you love? Let's not spend time talking about what doesn't work for you, but what would you love? And that's about creating vision. And then the real key of noticing what you're noticing. So that comes from emotional intelligence, the work of Daniel Goleman. And he talks about the number one key is that I'm aware of what's happening in me. And this is where people are taught, especially people who come from trauma, override that feeling. Don't worry about that. Oh, give them another break. And no, when it's consistently yucky, get away.
Yeah.
So I have a little reading that I'd like to throw in here.
I would love that.
And this comes from Hope for Today. It's an Al-Anon family group. And I kind of bogarted Al-Anon. One of the things I didn't have was a parent who was addicted to alcohol or drugs. I did have a parent who is addicted to food. But I love Al-Anon for so many reasons. And so I just love this little thing today. I just opened it up and it's actually April 13th, which is not today, but this is what I opened it to. It says, and this is one of the T's with capital T, right? 12-step people, when you look back, we know that the great teachers came and brought that together. It's full of Maslowian theory and all that. Now I choose to take responsibility for my actions. I choose how I act and how I think and how I feel about any situations that arise. I can choose fear or I can choose love. Fear keeps me shut off and unhealed. Love opens me up and heals me. And today, I choose love. Choosing love means that I stay away from physically, emotionally, or spiritually unhealthy situations. I no longer accept the unacceptable behavior. I love myself and I care about myself enough to walk away from hurtful people and hurtful relationships. I look at my part in situations, I own my mistakes, and I change my behavior. Choosing love means that I accept and embrace my humanity and that of others. And then with my higher power's help, I can see defects or weaknesses with compassion, which brings me release, joy, and serenity. So for today, I choose love.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I love it so much. And I know,
love that.
You know,
that's wonderful.
Miracles.
Yes, I do.
It's all the truth of the truth of the capital T.
Yeah. Fantastic. So you have a magnifying glass over here. How does that fit in?
So the magnifying glass also sits on my desk, also a gift from Mary and one of my teachers. And I love the magnifying glass because it really is constantly evaluating and taking a close look at what's true. So I notice what I'm noticing. I notice it doesn't feel good. Let's look at this. Is this temporary? Is this circumstantial? Is my friend going through a divorce and they're having a hard time? Or is this how they are all the time? And then I can make decisions from a place of empowerment rather than not being in charge of my life. So taking full authority over my life, I choose what's true.
Gosh, that is beautiful. Who is your ideal client for this work that you're doing right now?
So I work with people in different ways. I do single sessions with people. Sometimes people just want a one-off about whatever that thing is. And then I also, and so I'm not as picky with those single sessions. And then I have packages, and depending on the how big the package is and how long I'm going to be working with you, here's the deal. I'm not interested in working with someone who wants to stay stuck and nurse and rehearse their story. Yes, there's a place for us talking about your trauma and talking about what happened. And I'm interested in working with, and I only go deep with people who are ready to shift the paradigms and live a life they would love. They're done with that place of whatever it is. Most people come to change, as you know, through tragedy or loss. And I want to choose consciously that I'm going to invest in myself. And I do that. So those are the folks that I like. So I work with people, 5 sessions, 10 sessions, 20 sessions, and 5 people I work with. And these are people who actually apply to work with me. I do a 1-year, 38 session with.
Ooh, nice.
And that's a $10,000 investment in themselves. And
Yeah.
it is a deep dive. It is serious work. And I'm throwing all of the tools that I have into the mix with them and really see those lives transform. And so that's just 5 people. I want to be able to pay attention to people, be available to them. I travel a lot and make sure I'm really there. So this is a person who, man, you're done with the stuff. And somebody said to me, $10,000. Oh my gosh. So just to tell you my perspective, I spent over $140,000 last year on training myself. And so people say, well, I can't afford that. And as long as you keep believing that, you can't. But $10,000 is a vacation to Mexico, or you can invest in yourself, and then you'll figure out how to do both. Up to you. But I just did this most exciting thing, and I'm going to offer it to Vashon first. I'm going to do a 4-week live online course. And I do realize that there are realities about folks and money, and people have all kinds of money paradigms. But it's going to be, I'm going to do 4 sessions, and the first session is 4 weeks long, live online course, and it'll be on Zoom.
Wonderful.
And it is about love and relationships and creating a picture of what we would love, that first piece. So coming from our area of we're going to look at, what is your area of discontent? Oh, my relationships have fallen flat. I used to love my husband, wife, significant other partner, and now it's just kind of like the same old, same old. We're in common our thinking. I really want to get back to that passionate piece. I want to change up my tribe. I want to have some people. So we're going to examine their area of discontent and look at that. We're going to hold up the magnifying glass to that. And then we're going to put 4 bullet points here. Learn how to identify the paradigms that are keeping you from deep love, which may be like, this is all I can ever have, or gee, no one will ever love me because I look like this, or whatever your paradigms are. So we'll identify those. And then folks are going to learn how to utilize the 5 tools, my 5 key tools, and I've shared some of those with you, to develop and deepen your relationships.
Nice.
And to get the support you need to develop or deepen your relationships, and then discover the processes that really work. And so I've given you this greatest journal ever. I use this every day. It's rad, and it has 3 parts in it.
I can't wait.
So you create a vision in like 8 or 10 areas. This couple created this. They're so great. And they also have this, folks, if you're a 12-stepper, for people who are actually struggling with addiction. They have a really neat one there too. But the one that I gave you, Liz, this is my favorite. And all the clients that sign up for this online course, which the price is going to be $787 for Vashon, folks.
That's not bad, guys. That's a lot of really deep work for a great price.
But are you ready? $387.
Wow,
yeah,
that's
for the
fantastic.
First time. And the reason I'm doing it is because local, I love my community. Number 2, it's going to be Zoom, and it'll be my first time. And so if there's a few glitches, I'm hoping people will be a little forgiving. So $387 for a 4-week live online course. And I'm only going to take 20 people. That's it. So there'll be 10 people in 2 groups. And I'm really super excited about that. And everyone who signs up, the first 20 people that sign up are going to actually get the journal. That's rad. I love it so much. Awesome. And it has goal tracking, because we know that successful people who create change in their life pay attention, and they are tracking their goals. It's all the science of personal transformation.
And how do they get a hold of you for this?
So they contact me at jamiewolf@tribe525.com, or you can call me at 916-704-4803, or you can go to tribe525.com and fill out the form there about working with Jamie. Any of those, just say that you want to sign up for the 4-week live online course, and your price is $387. And I'd love to see my community there for that. It's going to be super rad.
That is fabulous. Wonderful. Everybody, I highly recommend this. It sounds like a great opportunity for everyone. What would you like people to walk away with today while we wrap up the show?
That your life can be everything you want it to be. And as hard as that may hear for some people that are suffering right now, I know it's true because I've done the work. And go find a coach or a teacher. Go find someone that can share with you, whether it's Liz, whether it's me, whether it's any of the myriad bigger folks who are out there teaching right now, go find somebody. And if all you want to do is call me and ask for a recommendation, I can help you with that as well. And if you're on Vashon Boy, I'd love to work with you. And I do work with plenty of folks on the island directly. I lead 2 groups on the island. So
Cool.
Lots of experience with our folks, and we're so special. We have our own special little thing. But don't wake up when you're on your deathbed and say, I wish I would have lived. It's the saddest thing in the world that when people live with that deep regret of a life unlived. You deserve to have a happy life. Show up for it.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Jamie Wolf, everybody, contact her. Thank you so much for joining me today in the studio. It's been fantastic. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today during our talk. This is Raise the Vibe with Liz Peterson on Voice of Vashon's 101.9 FM KVSH. Have a great day, everybody. Remember to get out there and raise the vibe.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us today with Jamie Wolf. Jamie, do you want to go ahead and share how people can get a hold of you if they need to?
Sure. You can contact me at jamiewolf@tribe525.com. That's via email, or call me at 916-704-4803. I travel a lot, so I might not get right back to you. Email is probably best. Or you can go to my website, tribe525.com, and leave me a message that way. Probably best way, jamiewolf@tribe525.com email. And so I'd love to hear from you, and please come to the seminar. It's going to be fantastic.
And when is that going to be again?
It's going to be within the next month. I'm going to launch it as soon as we get our folks. Okay. This is my very first announcement of it. So awesome. I want to get our 20 folks going, and then we'll take off.
Great. Sign up, everybody. It sounds like it's going to be fantastic. And thanks for watching Raise the Vibe on YouTube with us today. Remember to like and share if you liked it. Have a great day, everybody.
Namaste.
Bye.